You're listening to The White Rabbit, conversations on the art of presenting in a rather noisy world. Your hosts are Matt Krause and Alper Rosanes. Matt helps leaders of international companies speak, write, and present with confidence. Alper is a communications trainer and a startup investor with a diverse portfolio of companies in Barcelona. If you like this podcast, please share it with friends and colleagues. Now, on to Matt and Alper for today's conversation.
Alper, today we have a guest, Max Traylor.
Yes.
Max is that most meta of meta things. He's a consultant to consultants, and he's based out of Boston, Massachusetts, and is the author of the book, The Consultant's Survival Guide. So, Max, please say hi to everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Good to have you on the show. Have you read
Yes.
the book, by the way, Matt? I started it. It's going pretty well.
Yes, I have started it, and it's going pretty well. I like it.
Okay, should be about a beer and a half read,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
nothing too intense.
I'm at the 1 beer point, so I've got another half a beer to go.
I found
So-
it.
All right.
I found it fascinating that it's both for sale and for downloading for free. I went through the sale. I bought it actually to be able to use it on my Kindle. I was wondering your thinking behind going that way. It made me really curious.
Perhaps you overestimate how much thinking went into that.
Okay.
I did not write a book to make money with the book. I wrote it as a tool to get people to know my strong opinions on things.
Mhm.
And so, if people want to read it for free, they can do so. If people want to buy it to support, buy me my next beer, I think it's like $9 or something. I think I get $2 of that. So I do appreciate the support. But I also posted both of my books for free on LinkedIn. So this is against the advice of smart book people that I hire to tell me what to do
Mhm.
and then ignore their advice.
Mhm.
But I wrote it, so I get to make the rules.
Well, your next beer is on me then.
Yeah, thank you.
So Alper, Max works with consultants a lot on productizing their services. And in fact, if you go to his website, maxtraylor.com, you go to maxtraylor.com, you'll see product services or productized services infusing pretty much every page. So Max, tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself. What else would you like these people to know?
I think the theme is to create greater impact for less effort.
Okay.
And when I was it sort of started when I was 5. I'd walk into my dad's office and say, "Where do you make the money?" Because I thought he was printing money. He was working from home before it was cool, and so he would always say, "I'm around," and we could go to Disney World all the time because he put his personal life first and built a business around his personal life. And when I went professionally into consulting and I ran a marketing agency at a young age, I realized that in the professional service business, you have a real opportunity to screw that up.
Yeah.
And so the enemy is complexity
Mhm.
and the menu of services. And I help people simplify what they're doing as much as possible.
One thing that I've noticed, Max, and in a moment we'll get to the main subject for today, but one thing I've noticed is that you use lessons from your dad a lot. I know you mentioned it a few moments ago, and I've noticed that you've mentioned it a number of times before, lessons that you've learned from your dad. And of course, we've all learned lessons from your dad, but one thing that I've noticed is that you are particularly open about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I even wrote a lot of them down, in multiple books. But I think, I think I might win like the all-time award for just time spent, with dad, right? Because it was about 2 hours to Disney,
Mhm.
and we would drive to Disney, a couple times a month. And he was working from home, and he was the guy driving me to hockey practice and all these things. So
yeah.
I was listening to him. He was taking sales calls the whole time, and I was listening to things that he would do, and then he'd get off the call and explain to me what he was doing. And I guess the 1,000th time I heard some of this stuff, it stuck.
Yeah.
That's
And-
gold.
Yeah. And Max, one more thing before I forget. Tell our audience if they want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Oh, LinkedIn. LinkedIn's my spot.
Okay.
Max Traylor, Traylor. That's where I put all my content and meet people.
Okay, so LinkedIn is the place.
Yeah.
Okay. And Max, we have a lot of professional slide designers in our audience. I'm not one of them, but Alper is, and many of the people that we know are. So the subject of productizing the slide design service is near and dear to our hearts. Now, when a slide designer wants to get off the hamster wheel of one-off design projects, the ones where you jump from one client to another, you're always doing these one-off designs where each project is unique, stuff like that. When you want to get off that hamster wheel and you say, hey, this productized service thing sounds pretty good, I'd like to do something like that, the go-to answer seems to be, make some templates and sell them somewhere like Canva or Envato or something like that. And the slide designer says, thanks, but there are a gazillion people doing that, a gazillion people making templates and selling them on, Canva or Envato. And they make 3 cents a month. So give me a third option, something besides resign yourself to a life of one-to-one client meetings and one-off custom work. And the second option, which is to make some templates and sell them somewhere. So people are saying to us, give me a third option. What other paths are out there for me? It would mean the world to these people if we could give them that third option, something else that they could do. So help us out. What other paths are out there for these people?
Well, I'll give you a different perspective on it, because it sort of requires this perspective for anything creative.
Okay.
And I started, the first thing I productized, you could say, was a content marketing strategy, right? So also very creative. I wasn't drawing pictures, but I was writing words. So you have to zoom out and realize that any design is a means to something. It is a means to achieve a certain business result.
Okay.
And when you're creating and when you're doing this creative work, there is a process in place. It starts way before you start designing something. You talk to a client about what they want to achieve. You try to understand the person that's going to be consuming said design or said content. What do you want them to do?
Mm-hmm.
How are you preparing to receive that action once it is done?
Okay.
How might this asset be reused across the company? But ultimately, the only reason people pay you is to achieve a result.
Sure.
And understanding that full process is where you can start to say, okay, how can I start to create some consistency?
Mm-hmm.
How can I start to talk about my unique way of approaching this that attracts other clients and gets them to pay me more for the recognition that I'm doing this in a way that's more likely to generate the results. And here is a bunch of people that I've run that process for that say, yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just his designs. It's this process that he goes through that helps us achieve these results. So that's what I would encourage you to think about. And the other thing I've learned is that the more focused you are on the types of situations that you serve and the types of clients that you work with, the greater the price premium. And regardless of if you're productizing or not, price premium is a nice thing to have.
Of course. So I've got a question for you, Max, and in a moment I'm going to toss this over to you, Alper, because you as a slide designer are first in line to pepper Max with questions.
Yeah.
But Max, one thing that I wanted to ask you about first was, it seems to me that in the process that you're describing, or the thing that you just described, having a point of view would be really important. What do you think about that? Not just being a specialist in an industry vertical, but having a point of view within that vertical. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So David Baker has a really good picture of this in his book, The Business of Expertise. And by the way, everyone listening to this should read that.
I agree.
My favorite book. Yeah. Okay. So you've read it as well.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's very right. So strategy first, and it's a book on positioning, right? So his point is you have to be very deep on a particular subject. Myself, I chose productizing. I have to be very deep on that.
Okay.
And then the question is, what do you do with all that other knowledge and information that sits around that? Positioning, marketing, sales, all the things that I get asked about. So he says you should have a strong opinion about those things.
Okay.
You don't need to be an expert, but you should have a strong opinion. So I myself have a spreadsheet called Strong Opinions,
Okay.
and and that's what turns into these books, right?
Ah.
Each chapter is one of those strong opinions. So
Uh-huh.
as I interview people, as I talk to people, as I screw things up on client accounts,
Uh-huh.
I keep a journal of my strong opinions, and that I think is the foundation of your intellectual property,
Okay.
and what is ultimately what you'll ultimately look at and say, okay, I can organize these things as a service or a book or a podcast or a course. You know,
Mhm.
all of these different delivery mechanisms are just for different ways of packaging your strong opinions on
Okay.
how to deliver value.
Okay. So Alper, let me throw it over to you. Do you have questions for Max?
Yeah, I'll start with two actually. One of them is to be clear that I understand it correctly. When you say productizing, you're not talking about a product that you create, you put on a website, and it just sells itself off whether you're sleeping or not. Is it kind of a different approach you're talking about? Am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah, things and steps.
Okay.
My definition of productize is uh, you go through the same steps
Mm.
and you use the same things every time. Uh,
Okay.
it's like synonymous with like just do it better.
Okay.
You know, uh,
That clarifies a lot of things. Okay. Coming.
but often, but oftentimes it does when you start doing it more consistently and you start using the same tools. You look at that process and you say, "Wow, this could be a product." And so I think it is inclusive of those things that you see, you know, being sold online,
Mhm.
and for the right buyer and the right knowledge that works. But for for example, people try to create courses for executives to help them with their leadership skills.
Mhm.
Ain't no executive watching a video going and doing their homework. That is not a good format for that audience. You know, they need to pay a lot of money and have you hold their hand to change their ways. So lots of consideration needs to, you know, just because you can do it doesn't mean that it's the best way of formatting your knowledge.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And as I understood from the book, one of the core messages is positioning yourself to be indispensable. And if I understood it correctly, you talked about becoming indispensable through the separation of strategy versus implementation. And it really caught my attention because I would assume it would bring more value to the table if I were able to offer a strategy and be the person to implement that. But you're taking a different approach, and I would like to pick your brains on that. What I believe this is one of your strong opinions from the worksheet that you mentioned. What do you mean? What do you mean by separating them?
So corporate culture. Here's a strong opinion. Corporate culture is designed for people to ascend by pushing other people down.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what people are looking for is indications that you are below them, and they do this naturally. So in the early days of running my agency, I would start every product with every client with strategy, because I was paying attention to books like Business of Expertise, and I would be introduced as Max. This is Max. He's helping us with our marketing strategy. And my shoulders were, you know, I was sitting tall. I was proud. I had a seat at the table. Then I started to work on, not me personally, but my team started to work on developing a website. And I was introduced as Max is helping us with our website. Then we would start to write content and they would say, this is Max. He's helping us write our blogs, all the way down to, oh, Max is our Twitter expert.
Oh.
And so
Okay.
you know, and you know who doesn't get a seat at the quarterly business review with the rest
The
of the
Twitter
leadership
expert.
team? The Twitter expert, right? So I realized that it's very easy to go down. There's a kids game called Chutes And Ladders, uh, and so it's very easy to go down, to be demoted. Vendorified is actually a cool word on Urban Dictionary. The act of a client demoting you to that of a vendor, which is replaceable and should not be invited to the decision maker table because they have a bias. They are there to vend, not to help you make better decisions. So when you combine those two things, yes, it would be convenient for a client to be able to get both strategy and implementation from you. But unfortunately, as soon as you start to implement, you are no longer seen or trusted as a strategic partner.
I have been in that situation actually. After writing the opening speech of a very large worldwide known corporation in a like 1,000-person event, I was introduced like, this is our slide designer. There was actually a little bit more than that went into the job, but yes, I remember that.
Well, even Matt's here calling you a slide designer,
Yeah.
so you guys got to figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
at least I'm not calling him the Twitter expert.
there you go. There you go. We all how the mighty fall. But yeah, so there are a lot of organizations that attempt to do that, and Baker in his book, there's about 8 signals that you have to be aware of. The titles that you interact with, what you say on your website, pay attention to the words next to the $sign on your proposals, because most people will fancy themselves strategists, and when the person signing the checks flips through the proposal, there's slide design, $15,000 or whatever it is. You are going to be known for those words next to that $sign.
That's a very critical way of looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah. But many agencies, larger agencies, will simply create a completely different entity for their consultancy, and it's to protect that conflict of interest. Now, if you look at the boards of these companies, it's the same people running the companies, so it's sort of paper thin. But they'll create a different organization that gets invited to the decision maker table. That's their consultancy, and they consciously separate that from the implementation work for those reasons.
That's great. Thank you.
So we've got to wrap it up here in a few minutes. Alper, do you have any remaining questions for Max?
As always, I have tens more, but I'm not going to hog his time. So if you have more questions, I'll leave the floor to you.
Just not so much a question, but just I have found your book, Max, the consultant's book. I found that very useful. And so for the sake of our audience, tell us the name of that book again.
So it's the Consultant's Survival Guide. I think it's probably backwards on the video here, but yeah, Consultant's Survival Guide, Learnings for Make Benefit, the Glorious Profession of Consulting.
Okay. And remind me, where can people get it? They can either download it or they can get it from Amazon. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it is available for free right off my LinkedIn profile. It's one of my featured posts. You can download it as a PDF, or you can head to Amazon. Or if you want a really nice copy, you can send me an email and I'll give you an. I got like nice hard copies for people that say nice things.
Wow. Hey,
great.
Wait. Could I actually get one signed if I go through that method?
Yeah. I think you guys are on like the other side of the world,
Wow.
so it might take a little time to get you there. But yeah, I do. It makes me feel really grown up to sign a book.
Yes.
And send it to someone.
And you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that the amount that people pay for the book, if they buy it through Amazon, if the amount that people pay for the book, most of the money goes to Amazon and you only get a few bucks. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's how Amazon works. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done.
They print it, and look. We don't have to do anything, right? We upload some files.
Yeah.
They're the ones that have to print it.
Yeah.
Bezos is struggling right now financially.
Yeah.
So
Yes, we need to help them. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to buy
Come
some
on,
new
man.
helicopter blades for Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, and my printer's not going to cut it. I'm too popular to print these things myself. So.
Well, thanks for joining us, Max. It was a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
All right, so
Cheers.
so Alper, I'll see you next week then, huh?
All right. Good talking to you. As always,
All
take
right.
care.
Thank you very much. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to The White Rabbit with Matt Krause and Alper Rosanes. You can subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or through your favorite feed.